Okay, so I've got my very basic space set up now, and well, with the walls at least. And so I want to then just set up a floor and a ceiling that are going to follow that outline I've done with the wall. So very simply, starting with the floor tool, click on the floor button, and then I'm going to turn this option here on the options bar off, where it says extending to wall to core. It's going to clear that tick box, so it's turned off. And then I'm going to pick the outside. How are we going to do this? So it's a first floor. No, I'll actually do it on the inside. I'll do it the right way. I'm going to pick the inside face of each of these walls. But actually, I'm going to undo that last one and not worry about this wall here. What I'm going to do instead is just draw a line now from there and come down and then back across and then trim it, so it's basically just a rectangle, and I'll finish it, and then I might just switch back to the other floor plan with the image there, and then I can draw in maybe an extra wall or two. Again, just tracing over the inside there. And then, yeah, we've got the party wall there, that's all lining up. Yep, that's pretty good. So you can see there I've got the walls extending beyond just the room. So we'll have a look at it here, and we could even extend it further than that. So I'm just pressing space there to flip it as I draw. Probably to there's enough. And then just a little bit more around here wouldn't hurt as well. So again, just going back to my 230 wall, and just bring that down. That should be a party wall, even though it looks thinner. Something like this. Yeah, don't want to go too far, but yeah, that should be enough, something like that. And even over here, maybe I'll just extend that wall. So, in fact, I might just select the wall that I've already drawn, which is there it is, and extend that by stretching it. And then I'll mirror the door, just like so. Okay, so all I've done there is just extend those walls out past the room, and so now I can turn on the cropping and bring that back so that it's cutting off the edge of those walls. Stand over here. Okay, so can you see how that looks a lot more presentable than just having the room? Right, so just by extending the walls there, so that they at least go to where I'm going to cut the plan off. Maybe actually we can even bring this one back to here, so I didn't really need that other part, but it doesn't hurt. It's up to you. Right, so that's much better than having it stop right at the edge of the room. Because if it stops there, it looks like it's just a building by itself, but this makes it clear that it's all part of a larger building. And then the final thing, just coming back to the floor, now that I've got that crop region, I'll come back to the floor, and then I'll just edit the boundary and extend that out just by dragging it. And I might just draw in some more lines there and just make that go a bit further. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so you can see how that's a much better way of having the floor plan in the end. So if we set that up at the beginning, of course, that makes life much easier. And there we are. So in fact, that's probably too far. So that's probably good like that. I like this.
Do you think that'll go through the printer? Council paper?
Yeah, should just, yeah. Okay, so that's a good setup for my floor. And then you can see I've got the section already there going through the space. So I'm going to open that section up, and so then you can see the floor. And you can see that it's white. So I'm going to just select that, and then see in my list in properties there that I've got the existing 150mm floor, so I can just change it to that. And now, of course, it's black, which is how it should be. And then I want to extend the walls down so they go past the floor. So a quick way of doing that is to go back to the ground floor plan and then just use Tab to select all of those exterior walls. And then I'll go to, well, maybe actually I'll just do a bit more setup so it's a bit easier for you to see what I'm doing. I'm going to then duplicate this floor plan, and then I'll give it a new name, and we'll call that ground floor plan. And then I'll go back to the original ground floor plan, and then disable cropping, so I can see everything I've drawn. And now again, if I use Tab to select those exterior walls, you can see there, it's actually giving me walls that I don't want. So I'm going to deselect those with Shift, and then use Control to add the walls I do want. It's only a little thing, but it makes a difference. So now I can just go into the base offset, and I'll make that minus 500. And then I'm also going to make the top offset different. I'm going to change that to 500. Right, so I brought the wall down 500 and up 500. So now if I go back to the section, can you see how much better that looks? Having the wall there, continuing past the floor. It's only a little thing, but it makes a difference. So, okay, so now I also want the party walls, so all of these, which I might just select by right-clicking on one, and then I'll go to select all instances in entire project, and then again I can make the top offset for those 500. So now again, if I go back and have a look in section, you can see those walls extending up beyond the level. Right, so now if I go back to the ground floor ceiling plan, and I'll show you the really easy way of making a ceiling. Using the ceiling tool. Right, and then I'm going to change the level to level 1 and the height offset to 0. And so actually, sorry, I've missed a step because it's missing the internal wall. So I might just select those and bring them up. Yeah, I've got to think about this one. Definitely want to do a drop ceiling. So actually, I'll just make those 500 as well. So I should have probably just done all the walls 500 up, but maybe to make it different, I'll make this one 200. That will become clearer later. So again, if I go back to the ceiling tool now and change the level to level 1, can you see how the ceiling is, it's stopping at the bathroom. So I can just pick there to make my first ceiling, and it's telling me that the ceiling's there, but it's not visible. That's fine, I know that. And then I'll pick inside the bathroom to make another ceiling. And again, I get that message again. So why am I getting the message? It's because the view range isn't high enough. So I'm going to go back and edit that view range. And I'm just going to change the top there to unlimited and the view depth to the same, to unlimited, both of those. So now, I'm actually going to put some lights in, so I can, even from the very beginning, test out my renders and other things as I go. Even though I'll probably change the lights completely, at least this way we've got something to use as a starting point. And so, just to test it out, I'll go to Component, Load Family, and then Lighting, Architectural, Internal, and I'll just get the downlight round LED. And then make sure it's got the option there, Place on Face. Yep, that'll do. And I'll just place a few of those in the room. Might just go back to the ground floor plan, and then I'll get a bed that I've got in the library. So I'll just go and use Load Family to get this one from the Revit library. And again, I'm not going to use this bed in the end, but just so you can see something with a bit more detail in it. I'll get the this tube bed, but we'll replace it with something else later. So I'll just put that over there. Mainly so you can see that often when you get these really detailed 3D models which look good for rendering, you need to think about the way they're going to show in plan as well. And that's not a very good look for a plan, so we'd need to make some adjustment there, but it'll definitely work for rendering. So I'm going to just quickly make a camera view now in that space. So there's my bed. Might just adjust the view a little bit. Okay, probably not a very good space for the bed anyway, but I'll leave it there for now and just show you that if I go and render, so interior artificial only is the only change I'm making there, and that should render pretty well. Yep, sure. Another one. There's one down the end, I think.
Yeah, but that one's good.
There's one over here. Okay, now, have you seen this before where it goes black when you go to render? Yes. Yeah, do you know why that happens? That's right, it's because the camera's in a wall usually. So you can either adjust the camera in plan view. If you right click on the view name and go show camera, then you can see there's my camera. I just need to drag that outside the wall. So that fixes it. The other way is to use the navigation wheel, and you can just use the walk tool to walk it forwards a little bit. Yeah, you don't need to do that. Yeah, so that works. But the problem then, if you hide the wall, then you're going to get light coming in through the wall, which you don't want. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's a really good thing to do. Yeah. I've got some videos on how to make a light from scratch. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you can see there it's rendered, it's dark, but that's normal. We just need to adjust the exposure. And there we are. So, okay, so that's a good starting point, and then you can of course add a lot more detail in. But again, for now, that's probably a good place to start. And again, you can see the bed looks good in the render, but in the plan view, it might not look as good. So that's something you need to maybe just start planning out at this stage, how you're going to get that detail for those elements where you need it. And it probably will be mostly the beds and any other soft furnishings. And soft furnishings are a really important thing for decoration projects. And surely, I'm sure they're not going to get you to design each pillow, so that's at least something you can source from other sites. You can find 3D models of things like pillows, curtains, and other things like that, and add them to your model, And that'll add a lot of detail that's really important for decoration. So those are things that you need to start planning out. So maybe during the week you can even have a look online, just do a search. And this is one area where Revit City is actually pretty good. Okay, so I know Revit City. Yeah, oh great, yep. Yeah, so that's using massing, yeah. So you can do lots with massing, and yeah. So, yeah, well, that's a different thing again. So, okay, so I know there are lots of issues with some of the families on Revit City, but for these more high detail things that probably will be good for your project, it's still worth looking at. So have a look at Revit City. BIM Object isn't as good for high detail things. It's good for other things, but not for that. Herman Miller is pretty good for some high detail families as well. Knoll Furnishing, they do pretty good Revit families. There are lots of others as well. Corona for bathrooms have, and again, I know they're saying doing bespoke everything, but I'm sure they're not going to make you design the bath and the sink yourselves, because you can't. You can't have them made. Unless you get a Japanese timber bath or something, and then you can have it made by someone. But otherwise, how are you going to get a bath made by someone else? You can't. It's impossible, that's right. It's only built-in furniture that you should be designing. So, yeah, just sort of make that clear. Yeah, it has to be. So, yeah. So anyhow, that's a good basic setup, and I'll just remind you about the section, and that's really what I was trying to focus on there. So can you see how here I've got the walls extending beyond the level? That's really the key to it, to get your floors and your ceilings set up, and that's really what you want to focus on before you even worry about the furnishings. You need to have the walls extending past the level. So maybe just to finish off, I'll have a quick look at the height there. So this is quite high. Now, I've been trying to find the measurement for your ceilings. I couldn't see any, but because it just says ceiling height, and they don't give you a. Oh yeah, there is a dimension there. I just can't read it. 2900 is what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. So it's funny because 2700 used to be thought of as pretty high, but it's not really. And if you go back to Victorian era buildings, they were building much higher than that, and they had much more generous ceilings. And it's just a new when they forgot how to build in the 60s, the 50s and 60s, they really went backwards, and the building standards went way down. Or even before then, the 40s is when it started, the rubbish stuff, and then it's coming back to the good, high quality that we're doing now with again more generous ceilings. So yeah, so 2900 I think is what it says. So we should start with that. And so if we just select that level and make it 2900, you can see that the walls and the ceiling just go with it. And so now if we go back to the 3D view, of course that's all done for us, and we can just click render again, and that's all ready to go. I'll probably find a better bed than that anyway, but just wanted to have an example there to look at. Okay, so that's what you want to think about next, the floor and the ceiling, and then just start to plan out the approach you're going to be using for the furnishings, because that's really what you want to be focusing on mostly in this project, the furnishings of course. And so maybe after this I'll do a demo on families, but I'll give you some time to try all those things.